Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Huge shout out and special thanks to the channel members. The manhwa starts by introducing us to Shinye County, specifically the Young Manor. We see an elf checking a baby's pulse and then lets out a sigh of relief. The father asks how his son is, and the elf says it will be hard for the baby to live past 20 years old, as that's the type of constitution he has. We learn the father is the patriarch of the Young family, and his name is Deem Young. He asks if it's punishment from the heavens because he's a child that caused his mother to die due to birth. The elf looks annoyed and can't believe he's asking his physician that. He asks how he could say that to one of his own children, specifically one that will die young. He explains that it's similar to the 9 yin severed meridians, and never in his life has he seen anybody with their upper acupoint open to such an extreme. The elf continues explaining that if the Baihu acupoint is too open, one will die soon. People usually call that deity ascension. Deem Young asks if he means the thing Taoists that are very powerful do when they depart for the heavenly realm. The elf asks why he believes that nonsense, and he doesn't know if he's heard of absolute martial masters using the upper meridians of their heads, but that's them using the Baihu acupoints. That is the so-called deity ascension. When somebody gets too drunk on the energy of the great nature that came from the heavens and earth and dies because they could not withstand it, Deem Young glances down at his son, who looks super cheery, and then he stands up and begins to walk away, saying it seems that he's right and that this is heavenly punishment. The elf asks how he could call himself a father, and Deem Young tells him it's time for him to leave and he'll get the chief stewardess to pass his pay to him. The elf says that he doesn't need it and walks away hella angry. He says that if he had grown up in the unorthodox sect or the demonic faction, he would have become the heavenly demon. If he had grown up in the Shaolin Temple, he would have been able to use the 72 elite training methods of the Shaolin Temple 2 times over. But yet he was born as a hated child in a place unbefitting of his talents, and he'll die in the countryside young without any way to survive. He tips his hat to the stars, saying unless he achieves enlightenment on his own, that is. About 2 decades later, at the Young Manor, Deem Young has aged considerably. He says ever since his deceased father, a disciple of the Zhongnan sect, Sum Geomja, founded this clan, he's dedicated his whole life to focus on the revival. If their clan becomes famous throughout the world, he will have inherited the ultimate technique of the Zhongnan sect, so he does not plan to close down the business. He's really glad that at least his son followed in his deceased father's footsteps and managed to join the Zhongnan sect. Everybody starts congratulating one of the sons for his achievement, and Deem Young tells everybody to raise their glasses. One of the sons looks around and says that Yonshin isn't here yet, and Deem Young looks annoyed, saying that he told him to stay at the training ground, as it's better for him to not be here when it is such a joyous occasion, as he would bring ill omens. The man looks worried that his brother is being treated like this. In the training hall, we see a blue aura, and the baby from the start has now grown up, and he is practicing martial arts. A wave of energy swirls up from his feet, and his eyes open wide as he exerts it, sending a shockwave across the training room. That shit looks clean. He looks down at his hand, saying finally he's completely mastered the Young clan's movement art, and with this movement art, he can stimulate his muscles with energy and compress it, and that his body cannot get any stronger than it is now. And he wonders if it will make his lifespan longer. He starts to think about the movement art, and we see him telling his older brother that he created it. It wasn't from scratch though, and he simply remodeled their clan's exclusive martial art. His brother thinks about it and tells him not to take it the wrong way, but it would be better if he did not tell anybody about this. Yonshin asks why, and we see him telling his brother who got into the Zhongnan clan. He asks what he would do if he experienced energy deviation while learning it and died, and if he will take responsibility. Yonshin made a face as if he did something wrong, and then even Deem Young was yelling at him, asking how dare he mess with the clan's movement and the clan's martial arts, asking if he thinks he is the founder or something. Again, Yonshin makes a face as if he did something wrong, and he turns away. A clan founder is someone who creates martial arts and is the founder of a martial group. He's never thought of himself as anyone like that, and he never thought about creating martial arts. He just wanted to become healthy and live with everybody for as long as he possibly could because he loves his family. He hears some people outside saying that it's about time they arrived, and he wonders where they're all going, and then he recalls that today is the day the martial masters of the Zhongnan clan visit. The Zhongnan sect is one of the 9 great sects in the world, one of the twin walls that are known as the strongest groups in Shanxi, along with the Manhua sect, the place where the sword deities are at. And he wants to meet them in person. We see him asking somebody a couple of nights before, if there's a reason that he can't show his face to the clan guest, suggesting maybe it's because he caused his mother's death. The assistant tells him it's only the patriarch's order, and Deem Young wonders why his father ordered it. The assistant then apologizes to him, and Yonshin looks sad. He begins to walk forward, saying maybe if he sees it from afar it'll be okay, and he's sure he'll be able to learn something from such skilled masters. The gates open up as a lot of the family's practitioners and servants wonder who's coming in, saying that maybe it won't be the Sky Sword Dragon, but at least an elder, and it would be a real honor for their clan if one of them were to visit. We see Deem Young and the family all ready to greet them, and somebody yells saying they're coming in. In the back of the crowd, Yeonshin watches with the servants. A woman begins to enter, and as soon as she takes a step in, the air changes, and everybody notices her ears, as she is called a noble race, aka an elf. Yeonshin explains that the noble race is known in books to be a mysterious race that can live on forever, and humans think of them as deities, and that energy around her is the core energy condensed in one's body, but it's being exuded naturally from her. Everybody is surprised, and Deem Young says he's utterly honored that they would visit their shabby clan and laughs, and he introduces himself to her. She's grateful for such a warm welcome, and she introduces herself as Yo Il Shin, an elder of the sect. Deem Young is surprised that she would be an elder since she looks so young, and then bows, as so does everybody else, and he says he is sorry for not being able to recognize the deity in front of him. She tells him to raise his head because she's not here to boast her status. He continues laughing nervously, saying she's come such a long way, and he apologizes for this respect once more, and he can't believe he kept one of the sword deities of the Jongnan sect waiting outside, and he'll quickly let her in. Yeonshin is just curious about how long she has lived, and she begins to follow Deem Young. While she's walking forward, she can feel Yeonshin glaring at her, and she looks over at him. He's surprised that they made eye contact, and he quickly greets her. Deem Young wonders why she stopped and turned, and says that that is his third son. Il Shin says that he has really bright eyes, and he looks smart, and Deem Young laughs, saying he's sorry, but his third son is not very mannered. She asks what he means, and Deem Young says that it's embarrassing, but he's a troublemaker in the family. Yeonshin just heads back to the training area, saying that he has gained a new perspective after seeing her energy. He had nowhere else to climb after training in his clan's movement arts, and he was wondering what he should do, and he unsheathes his blade, looking at it, saying he guesses it would be good to try training with swords. As the night begins to fall, Il Shin's servants say this place is better than they thought, and with this much earth energy, the Tyrant Sword tribe would want this place. Il Shin says they'll definitely come here, so it'll be good for them to plan a counterattack, but that'll result in the sacrifice of this entire clan. Her servants ask why they don't just attack them before they cross the walls, and she thinks it would be nice if that happened, but she explains to them that within the Tyrant Sword tribe, there are those known as the 13 Skies, and they're all hella strong just by themselves, and they shouldn't let their guards down, and they need to keep their sword aura sharp. She takes a sip of her tea, as she can't stop thinking about Yeonshin, saying that he clearly stood out among them, and she finds it strange. We see a blue aura from the training hall that night. As Yeonshin is still there meditating, and he feels his Baihu acupoint open on the top of his head, and he wonders why it's so open. Although he wasn't able to meditate for a year, since he focused on training his body via his clan's movement arts, the amount of energy that goes through his head has gotten even greater than before. At this rate, he thinks he'll have less than 5 years before he loses consciousness, and if that happens, that means he has less than 5 years to live, because it would lead to him in a vegetative state. A chill runs down his spine as he genuinely feels terrified. He opens the training hall and walks outside, looking up at the moon, saying even though he's completely mastered his clan's movement arts, he can't stop this. He then suddenly senses something, which makes him no longer feel relaxed as he glares over, wondering what's going on, as there is an ominous energy from the other side of the wall. He grabs his blade and quickly runs over, saying something's off, and the closer he gets, the stronger the scent of blood is. It is also way too quiet. He sees an orange barrier blocking the door and heads straight through it, saying that it is a trap formation. He then immediately stops running as he is surprised by what he sees. All of the clan's practitioners and servants dead on the floor, as they have been brutally murdered. He says that he can't believe he didn't realize something like this was happening within the manor. He makes his way through the bodies, saying it must have been because of the trap formation. As one of the servants' faces is filled with fear, as there are still tears on her face, he closes her eyes, wondering if the culprits are that much stronger than everybody else. He hears a voice saying that he can't believe somebody's alive, and they call him a fool, saying if he managed to stay alive, he should have just stayed hidden instead of crawling out. The whole group looks over, saying that they guess he just got unlucky and they should send him to the afterlife. They all have red hair except the bald dude. Yeonshin glances up at them, and Baldy says he's only killing him because he was ordered to, so don't blame him for this. He begins to concentrate his aura into his hand, but Yeonshin doesn't plan to let this happen. He quickly gets into his stance as Baldy comes in with a palm strike. Yonshin grabs onto the back of the man's arm, and the man immediately realizes this is bad, as Yonshin crushes the bones in his arm with just pure strength alone, causing the man's arm to rotate and warp as he lets out a scream. But Yonshin's facial expression does not change as the man drops to the floor in pure agony. Everybody looks worried as they turn to see their comrade holding his pretzel-fied arm. Yonshin begins to release his energy now, and they unsheath their blades, asking who he is while sweating nervously. He holds up his blade, saying he is the third son of this clan. Yonshin begins to slowly walk forward as he is releasing bluish lightning from his feet. Baldy begins to stand up and starts yelling at him. He goes to palm strike with his other hand, calling him a bastard. Before he can even react, Yonshin quickly lobs his head off. Baldy didn't even react to it, as all he sees is Yonshin's body tilting sideways. Bro got ahead of himself for real. The other red-haired dudes are all surprised at how fast he drew his blade. But of course, Yonshin doesn't give them time to act, as he uses something called the Scripture of Origin ability, cutting off another one's head. One of the men screams instead of swinging his sword. Yonshin capitalizes on that, cutting him diagonally in half. He then charges at the final two. One of them raises his blade but loses his arm. The other loses his head. Yonshin turns around to finish the guy whose arm he cut off and thrusts his sword forward, stabbing the man straight through the chest. The man looks at the blade in fear, but Yonshin just looks pissed. He pulls the blade out, and the blood from all the bodies begins to fly out as it happened so quickly they couldn't even react to the movements in front of them. They all drop to the floor in perfect unison. Yonshin walks back out to the servants and sighs, saying this was his first time training the delightful sword, but he gets how it works now. He hears a voice saying that's pretty impressive, and he looks over as a new group of people are walking in, and he's confused. One of the men says, but it's not really much to write home about, as these are all idiots and they lost because they let their guard down. Yonshin wonders what's the deal with them as they're wearing a different uniform. But the man continues yapping, saying it's still a little surprising, asking how he could be so good despite his young age, asking if he trained the delightful sword all his life. Yonshin asks if they are from the Bloodflame cult, and he says no, those are the dudes he just killed, and they are from the Tyrant Sword tribe. He can't believe both of them are here. He explains that the 13 Skies are said to be the most powerful and cruel groups in all of Muram. He can't believe that both of them, which are part of the 13 Skies, would be here together. He asks what business the two organizations of the 13 Skies would have here. Bandana Bro says it's none of his business, and Yonshin smirks. He says this since they are answering his questions rather than attacking him. He wonders if they know about him. Bandana asks what he means and just stands there waiting for his reply. Yonshin asks if he knows that his family is a part of the Desolate Fortress, the best branch sect in Muram. That's why if they kill him, it would be a pain for them even if they are a part of the Tyrant Sword tribe. But before they can even answer him, a giant explosion is seen from the wall as a man gets sent flying through the air. We get a better look as he is one of the dudes from the Jongnan sect, and Yonshin surprised that the assistant is spitting up blood. He then looks up to see Il Shin flying in from above, dodging an attack. She glances down at him, and he wonders what's going on. She manages to regain her footing but is clearly pained as she uses her sword for stability to stay upright. Her ear is bleeding. He says if one of the sword deities is in such a pitiful state, the enemy must be quite powerful. A man begins to come from the other side of the wall, and a chill instantly runs down Yonshin's spine. Il Shin looks up as we see a man levitating over the wall. He slowly starts to descend and walk forward while releasing a dark purple aura. Yonshin wonders who this is as there is a very strong dark energy around the man. As if the man exudes pure death energy, something akin to the human embodiment of it. Yonshin wonders who he is. Mr. Bandana and his brothers are also surprised. The man glances over at Yonshin, which makes his head feels light just from the eye contact. Bandana instantly gets on his knees, greeting the tribe leader, as do the rest. Yonshin says he can't believe that the Tyrant Sword tribe leader is here. He is the man who reigns over the Tyrant Sword tribe. He is considered a harbinger of disasters here in Jianghu. He wonders why a man who is considered an equal to a patriarch of one of the 9 great sects is in a place like this. He looks over at Il Shin and her assistant, who is heavily injured, and says either way, at this rate, they are as good as dead. He lets out a long-winded sigh and says he might as well test himself if he is going to go out. He stomps off the ground, destroying it, charging forward extremely quickly using his aura. Bandana is caught off guard as he didn't expect such movements. Yonshin readies his blade, and Bandana goes to unsheath his, but he is too slow as Yonshin already thrusts forward, stabbing him through his chest as he couldn't even react. Both Il Shin and the tyrant tribe leader are just watching. Bandana draws his final breath, and then Yonshin lets his corpse-onde sword fall forward, then asks the tribe leader if he thinks he can kill him even if he were to do something like this in his face. Everybody else draws their blades, calling him a bastard, but the tribe leader says that's enough and that his spirit is better than all of those here combined, and everybody is just surprised, even Il Shin. His men realize that if he is praising the enemy, this is pretty bad, and the tribe leader says that he will let him live, and Yonshin says it's more like he can't kill him. He reaches for his blade, pulling it out of Bandana, saying because he knows that he is the only grandson of the former Divine Sword Squad, and leader of the Desolate Fortress. Il Shin is surprised about who Yonshin's grandfather is and says that he is the best in the Desolate Fortress. The tribe leader says that it's definitely not a good idea to get involved with the Desolate Fortress, but that is not the reason that he is letting him live and that he just likes him. And if he didn't have any connections to the fortress, he'd have made him his disciple. Il Shin and his men are surprised that he is rating him this highly. The tribe leader raises his sword and stabs him to the ground, saying that he will give him 1 day to leave this place. He does not permit any other sects or clans to set foot on this land. He slowly walks away after saying what he has to. He then stops for a second and turns, saying that he will always be open to have a duel with Yonshin, and he can come and find him when he is ready to get revenge. Yonshin just continues to mean mug him, even as he exits the manor. He starts to paint a vivid image in his mind of his back. Something for him to chase after. Yonshin finally makes his way inside and looks down at his father, who is struggling to breathe. Yonshin tells his father that he is here. His father stretches his hand up towards him, asking why he is so strong and how he lived. Yonshin tells his father that it is due to the movement art that he created and mastered. His father is surprised that he created it. He recalls back to when he tried telling him before and how he just yelled at him, asking if it was from back then. Yonshin says yes. His father looks up, realizing how much of a fool he was. He says that it is the sacred art created by the Young clan. He begins to cry, saying that he was so ignorant and foolish as he overlooked the fact that his third son created a sacred art. He tightens his grip on Yonshin's hand and says that he definitely has the qualities of a founder as tears roll down his face. Yonshin looks down at him with sad eyes, and his father's eyes begin to lose focus. As his final words acknowledge that he was his son, he then closes his eyes. Yonshin realizes now that his father has passed, and his brother starts to scream out for his father as Yonshin stands up. We see the assistant holding his younger sister, and he calls out to Yonshin. Yonshin asks how his sister, is, and the steward says that she is safe. She is just sleeping after her acupoint got blocked. It seems it was blocked to knock her out. She was hidden so the killers wouldn't find her. Unlike everybody else, Yonshin looks down at his family's corpses and calls out to his brother, saying that he needs to raise Heya in the Jongnan sect. She has an exceptional affinity with the 5 elements, so they'll definitely take her in. His brother asks about him, and Yonshin says that he'll look after himself. Il Shin then calls out to him, and they make eye contact. He asks if she's leaving now, and she says yes. Now that the Tyrant Sword tribe has gotten involved, she must report this to the sect without delay. She asks Yonshin what he's going to do and if he is going to the Desolate Fortress where his mother is from. He says yes, as he doesn't have anywhere else to go where he can grow stronger. She asks how about he come back with her to Jongnan Mountain, as she would strongly recommend it. He says that he is truly honored to receive an offer from an elder of one of the great sects. She then adds on that she intends to recommend that he become the sect leader's disciple. His eyes immediately change, and her assistants are surprised too. He asks if that's even possible, and she says it would be possible only for him. He wonders why, and he explains that the direct disciple of the Jongnan sect leader would be able to learn the absolute sacred art of the clan, and that the leader is one of the top 10 martial masters in the entire world. He puts his hands together, saying that he won't forget the kindness that she has shown him, but he must apologize. She sighs then smiles, telling him not to worry about it, saying that she simply wanted someone talented like him, and that's probably what the Tyrant Sword tribe leader thought too. He says again to forgive him, but she says it's fine and that the doors of the sect will always be open for him. Hopefully, he remembers that. He looks hesitant, but then says he has a question for her. He says that he knows she's one of the older people among the noble races, and he asks if she knows of the method to get the fruit of the world tree. She's surprised and goes to ask him something, but of course we need more plot. We learn that the fruit of the world tree is protected by the Desolate Fortress leader, whom the Emperor has acknowledged as the king and a peer. It is said to give eternal life and youth to those who eat it. It is a treasure of the heavens. So surely, if he ate that, his lifespan would increase, so he would be able to live longer than 5 years. She says that she hasn't even lived half her own lifespan, so she has no authority over the world tree. All she knows is that the desolate fortress leader is able to give people that. He says in that case he must go there. She warns him that it won't be an easy journey, as it's a sacred item even for her and her noble race. He says he doesn't know any other way, so it can't be helped. All he can do is become the divine sword squad leader and achieve great feats. She puts her hands together out of respect, saying that she'll cheer him on from afar. She turns, saying that she needs to take her leave to update the sect. She says her assistant, the cliff swordsman, and the neutral spirit fist, who looks like a fish, will help clean up this place. And then she heads out, and he pays respect to her once more. Morning finally comes and shines down at the manor as we see they dug graves in the woods. He thanks both of the assistants, saying he's glad that they helped. They say it's all for the sake of the clan and that they played a part in this tragedy after all. Yeonshin's brother then calls out to him. He looks really regretful. He says an apology won't cut it for everything that has happened to him and the clan. When they meet again, he'll try to be an older brother to make up for his shortcomings so far, and he hopes that he'll do his best to survive. Yeonshin warns his brother that he is not exceptional, at least that's the way he sees it, and he's going to have to train like his life depends on it. His brother doesn't even get angry and says that he'll remember his words. Yeonshin looks down at his sister, never mind that's his niece, and he tells his brother to protect her. He then asks the chief steward where he is going, and he says there are small branches of the Jung clan in various places, and since the bloodline of the clan is alive, he'll look after the remaining assets. Yeonshin then says he knows he's heading to the desolate fortress and he hopes they can meet from time to time. Since the steward knows martial arts, he'll be of help, and the steward bows, calling him master. Yeonshin says that he hopes he lives a comfortable life and he should take care of himself. The steward's surprised by his kind words, and then Yeonshin turns, taking his leave from the group. The steward still can't believe what he just heard and wonders if anybody else in the Jung clan has ever said something like that to him. It jumps to Yangyang as we see the city streets bustling, and Yeonshin is being shown upstairs at an inn. He makes his way to a table, puts his bag down, and glances over at the city, saying that he's finally here. In the distance, we see the desolate fortress, and we hear some men in the other room saying that the fortress is truly incredible. People from all over the Central Plains would gather here with big dreams due to them. The boss of this inn struck the jackpot, and he says he's completely out of liquor to sell. Another one says it's been really chaotic in the restaurant these days. The martial artists that come in here to take their entrance exams are always drunk. Yeonshin wonders if there is such a thing as an entrance exam to the fortress. Somebody approaches him, asking if he is here to take part in it. His name is Han Wanchang. They stare at each other for a second, and Yeonshin asks if he is, but doesn't answer his question. The man says he forgot to introduce himself, and he is fascinated to see a challenger younger than himself. He says he is from a very faraway city in the outskirts of Shanxi. Yeonshin introduces himself as well and where he is from. The guy says since he came from somewhere nearby, his journey must have been easy, and explains how he had to fight green forest bandits and swim against the pirates of the pirate fortress. And that their water martial arts were legit aids to deal with. Yeonshin starts to get flashbacks as we see his sword is bloodied and there were bandits on the ground in fear. But he slept peacefully. He takes a sip of his drink, saying his journey was indeed pretty easy. Wanchang turns around and begins to look around the inn, saying they should become friends and share information about the test if they have any. Yeonshin asks what he means by test, and Wanchang looks a little confused, saying it is known as the Desolate Fortress Trial and is quite different from the usual martial arts tests. Just as how those who want to become a government official must be well versed in both martial arts and literature, there is a test for joining the Desolate Fortress, which is why so many people are gathered here. No matter if you have foundations or not, the moment you join them, opportunities and teaching will be provided to you, and it's no wonder that everybody is trying to come here. There are countless people who have learned various martial arts so that they can pass the test as well. Yeonshin sets his cup down, saying that people would say that if you want to take on the world with just one weapon, go to the Desolate Fortress, since the imperial family that rolls over the Central Plains would make their move in order to control the martial arts groups. All of the elixirs and advanced martial arts gathered from all over the world are waiting inside of the fortress. Wanchang says that some people say that the great sects with traditions are better, but they don't know anything. Asking how could martial groups created by mere commoners be stronger than the fortress? If that's possible, they would be able to create an empire. Yeonshin says he sees, and Wanchang continues, saying almost nobody has been able to pass the fortress trial in one try. The chances are 1 in 1,000. They are usually next generation leaders or reputable martial arts clans that are rising in the world and gaining fame. That brings him to this, asking if he would like to take the test with him tomorrow. Yeonshin agrees, and Wanchang is just surprised by how easygoing he is. He says that he knows it might be confusing on his first try. Bro continues to show that he is fluent in Japanese. Yeonshin instantly tunes him out and looks off towards the fortress, saying that he is glad he can join as long as he passes the test. He didn't want to ask his mother's family for help since he doesn't know where they live or what they look like. The next day, we see a flag raised high in the sky as Yeonshin and Wanchang are walking towards the fortress. Wanchang says it's time to go. Yeonshin is excited to see what the desolate fortress will hold for him. Later, we see Yeonshin being given a plaque, and someone says that he's number 13. Yeonshin says okay and looks around at the competition, gauging them as there are also people there to judge. Wanchang starts to explain that the first exam is just about getting the supervisor to accept your plaque, but you'll fail if he tells you to return it to the receptionist. The second exam is a tournament. Yeonshin asks if there's a third, and Wanchang thinks about it, saying it's an interview with the fortress's lord. Yeonshin is surprised by that, asking if he really means with the lord himself. Wanchang says yes. Then explains that there are martial artists who come to Yangyang just for that chance. A conversation with an absolute master like him is an incredible opportunity, and they hope to receive some kind of profound understanding from talking to him. Yeonshin looks at the tournament and says that he'll take note of that. One of the interviewers says the first exam is about swift sword arts, and to demonstrate one swing with the fastest sword technique you own, and he shall watch and judge it. Wanchang immediately yells, saying he'll go first, and the receptionist gives him approval. Wanchang says he got nervous and did it. Yeonshin says this seems simple enough. Wanchang begins to draw his blade, and Yeonshin says he's got a well-polished spirit. He can tell he's strong and he's even stronger than some of the vagabonds he saw on the way here. Wanchang exhales and then quickly draws his blade, swinging it horizontally, leaving a little bit of smoke in the air too. Some of the spectators say this man is a bit different, and they didn't even see him swing, only the smoke from after it. Wanchang audibly gulps, looking up at the judge, wondering what he will say. The judge thinks about it and says it's not bad, telling him to give him his plaque. Wanchang's happy and then thanks him. Wanchang gives Yeonshin the thumbs up, telling him good luck. Yeonshin doesn't look worried at all, and he slowly walks up. Some of the people in the crowd are surprised that he's so young, and they compliment his guts, asking if he's from another province, as where else would he be able to show sword techniques in front of a martial artist of the desolate fortress? Even receiving one piece of advice is incredibly precious. Yeonshin stops walking and looks at the judge and nods his head, as does the judge, who tells him that he may begin. Yeonshin immediately opens his eyes as the aura gets tense, and we see his blade is already behind him. His aura begins to disperse, and then immediately a strong gust of wind follows. The judge is left impressed, everyone else is confused, wondering what is going on. Yeonshin looks at his blade, and the crowd starts to ask when the hell the sword moved. Wanchang is left speechless. The judge wonders what to say as well and then says that the future of the desolate fortress is right here as Yeonshin sheathes his blade. Everyone is surprised at how highly he is being valued, and the judge tells him to hand over his plaque. He looks at it, maybe the number is important, or he's just remembering which people stood out. Telling him to be on his way. He calls for the next one up, and Yeonshin takes his leave as Wanchang quickly follows from behind and asks if he is perhaps the son of a famous family. Yeonshin asks if that changes anything, saying that after entering the desolate fortress, he heard that all that matters is martial arts talent and effort. Wanchang asks if he really plans on passing the trial, and Yeonshin says surely that's why everyone else is here. Not just him, but Wanchang as well. Wanchang says that he's right and then bows, saying that he'll be on his way, thanking him, and then leaves with a very serious expression. All Yeonshin wishes for is that Wanchang passes the second exam too. Back at the inn, Yeonshin is meditating with the windows open. He remembers Wanchang saying the second exam is a tournament where you compete against others with martial arts and he has 3 weeks until the second exam. Considering how close it is, the correct choice is to train his skills. He will train his movement arts, his rapid sword arts, as well as his scripture of origin and focus on strengthening his movement technique. He trains until the sun fades out, and then we get a whole 3-week time skip. A man from the fortress is leading Yeonshin and the rest of the pack, saying until they are called, examinees should wait here. He heads towards a door and opens it. While everybody else watches, some of them say it even makes them feel discouraged, and they heard that the white martial arts outfit signifies an elementary level martial artist, but yet his energy is so strong, and it's obvious that even just wearing white means your future is guaranteed. Wanchang calls out to Yeonshin and asks if he's gotten taller. Yeonshin says that he also looks like he's much healthier, and Wanchang says that he did accomplish something, tapping his chest. He looks down at Yeonshin, saying he would like him to remember that winning is not what's important in this exam. Even just having one of the 2 matches of the tournament is enough to catch the eye of one of the masters who will be watching. Although that's the hardest part. Turns out Bro has already failed. Yeonshin asks if that means you can win a match and still fail, and Wanchang says yes. The problem is that the exam supervisors are going to have a higher standard today. Yeonshin asks why, and Wanchang says he heard that the White Keelan is competing at the trial today. Yeonshin asks if he means the White Keelan from Namgung, and Wanchang says yes, and we learn that he wiped out a notorious group of bandits before he was even 15. He also beheaded the swords master of an unorthodox faction called the Shrouded Assassin. Wanchang continues, saying there were even rumors that he defeated all of the upcoming fighters at the 8th Great Family's Dragon and Phoenix tournament when he was only 18. Yeonshin asks what he's lacking if he already has such high martial prowess. Why is he trying to join the Desolate Fortress? Wanchang tells him that it's because he's the child of a concubine, so he can't become the patriarch, and if one rises to the position of the Desolate Fortress's Lord's Captain, it's of a similar standing to a patriarch of the 8th Great Families. As the Desolate Fortress maintains the order of Zhonghu in the Central Plains, after all. Yeonshin gives him a look as if he understands, and then the examiner quickly calls out for Yeonshin to step up. Wanchang looks nervous, but Yeonshin does not, and he says that he hopes to see him again here inside the fortress. Wanchang is surprised and then screams yes as Yeonshin walks forward. Inside, there are martial masters of all types ready to watch the fight. Yeonshin's opponent draws his blade, but of course, Yeonshin only watches, and the judge announces to begin. The man begins to laugh, and Yeonshin wonders what's the deal. The man says not even knowing his final destination is mere despair, and he must be a moth that's struggling around a flame. Bro is a Miriam Shakespeare. He goes to ask Yeonshin if he knows who he is, only to have his face get absolutely dented because Yeonshin hit him with the sheath of his blade, sending him flying. The man thuds onto the ground. Bro is fugly, and Yeonshin is just confused that it was so easy. They quickly start dragging the Ugo away as Yeonshin watches. The other martial artists don't really seem interested in the fight, and then one man smiles, walking forward, asking if he can begin now. Yeonshin wonders what's going on, as the man looks very different from the last guy. Yeonshin realizes this must be where his test begins as they are now in the middle of the ring together with the judges. Some men in the back say finally, and they wonder who will take him, as the squad leaders are going to be fighting over him. Some of them say he's even stronger than they are, and they would not expect any less from a Namgung. Yeonshin realizes based on the name that this guy must be the White Keelan, and the spectators wonder if they are going to be able to witness the Boundless Heaven technique today. Yeonshin says that he looks like he's 5 years older than he is, but it's not a level that he can't reach. Thanks to his family's martial techniques, he is more fit than he is, but he is below him in other aspects. The man puts his hands together and introduces himself as Namgung Hwashin, and he says that he's mainly trained in the Boundless Heaven technique and the Infinite Steps, and he unsheathes his blade, telling him it's nice to meet him. Yeonshin does the same by putting his hands together and says that he's trained in the Jung movement art. Hwashin is then confused, asking him if he's not going to draw his blade. Yeonshin puts his hand on it and then rotates his body, giving him a glare as if he is ready. The man then gives a nod as he understands, and then starts to channel aura into his blade. Yeonshin readies himself, saying that the main essence of the technique he has been practicing recently is unpredictability. An unexpected main attack in the midst of an unpredictable rhythm, and if it works, he should be able to get him to let his guard down. Yeonshin sits there waiting for the moment as the air begins to get really tense with everybody watching in anticipation. The judge yells to begin, and then immediately we hear their swords collide as Yeonshin's blade gets broken and is sent flying across the room. Yeonshin continues glaring at Hwashin, who looks a bit taken aback by the speed. Hwashin's sword falls onto the ground, and everybody is confused, wondering what that was. They all say that Hwashin won so fast, and that shit was crazy, but some other people start to have a very different view and look nervous. Hwashin looks down at his blade and realizes and points it to the ground, admitting that he has lost. Yeonshin is surprised, and some of the other martial masters ask him what he means. The men from earlier say that Yeonshin's sword was hella scary and that he is definitely younger than Hwashin too, wondering if maybe he can't use true energy with his techniques yet, and that they didn't know that there was a hidden master and they are scared of what he will become. The judge asks him if his name was Yeonshin, and he says yes. He then points, saying there is another garden if you go north from here and to wait there. Yeonshin says okay and then puts his hands together, telling Hwashin he would love it if they could duel another time. Hwashin says that's what he was about to say too and he looks forward to it. Yeonshin looks at him as if he learned something, then quickly heads out of the building. We see other people already waiting, and they all look back at him, surprised that somebody so young passed, and they thought that Hwashin would get in first. Yeonshin says that he knew there would be no chance of winning if the fight dragged on, which is why he is the most extreme form of the delightful sword. However, because Hwashin's sword was imbued with his true energy, his broke. It was a failure on his end for being too rash with his attack, but for him to admit his defeat, he guesses that is the nobleness of a renowned family. He recalls how the others mentioned that he can't use true energy. We learn that the Jung clan is a third-rate branch clan, and if there was someone in the household that knew how to use such a skill, there was no way he would not have learned it. However, he knows it now, and he realizes how it should be used the moment he witnessed it. As he looks down at his hand, he begins to imbue his aura into his sword, saying he understands now that it isn't just simply putting the energy into it. He can use the true energy as a medium to become one with the sword. As it begins to vibrate rapidly, everybody hears the sound and looks over. I wonder if it sounds like a lightsaber, and they recognize it as sword resonation, saying that's impossible as he is so young, as we see it beginning to send out pulses of aura that are cued with the sound, and it kind of sounds like sonar. Yeonshin says the sensation is as if his sword and body are united, and this must be body-sword unification. Bro is built different. Yeonshin wonders about the new techniques he'll be able to use while in this state. As the aura begins to dissipate, he slowly opens his eyes and smiles while looking at his blade. Hwashin then congratulates him on his enlightenment, as we see him standing beside him. Yeonshin is confused as he notices he has his hand on his blade, and that the rest are watching intently. He wonders if he was protecting him for fear that somebody might get in the way of his enlightenment. He tells Hwashin that he wasn't aware that he was protecting him and thanks him, congratulating him on passing the fortress trial, calling him Sir Namgung. Hwashin's taken aback and lets out a very loud laugh. Wan Chang says that he's here too, reminding him that he exists and he's not just a side character. Yeonshin congratulates him too, and Wan Chang does the same. He asks if he knows that he's gotten a nickname. Yeonshin asks what he means. Wan Chang explains that when someone has shown exceptional prowess or attracted attention, people would give them a nickname and call them by it. Unless it's someone who commits an atrocious or evil deed, most nicknames represent a huge honor for martial artists, just like Cliff Swordsman, the Neutral Spirit Fist, and the White Chi Lin. Hwashin says that he heard about it too, and Yeonshin is confused, thinking all he did was take a trial. Hwashin tells him that they call him the Lightning Genius. Yeonshin is surprised, but Hwashin explains that it is based on his talent of lightning. It's even more impressive that the martial artists of the Desolate Fortress are calling him that, which means that it's basically his nickname in the entirety of Jianghu now. Yeonshin asks if he's sure they're not just mocking someone who's young and a little fast with his sword. Hwashin asks what he means by a little fast, saying that if he said that was just a little bit, yet he could barely react, he wonders how slow that would make him. Yeonshin says that it's a name that he wouldn't have even dreamed of when he was doing the horse stance in the manor, and it doesn't have a bad ring to it. Somebody yells, telling everybody to gather around, saying only one trial remains. If they pass it, they'll join the fortress. Yeonshin looks ready and glares up at the pagoda, saying that he's about to meet a living piece of history and one of the strongest martial masters, or rather, maybe even the strongest. Everybody heads inside and then comes out looking absolutely defeated. They laced his shit with fentanyl. Wan Chang looks worried, as the guy just zombies his way past them. Wan Chang says everybody's coming out pretty fast, and he wonders if the leader is just looking at their faces while talking. Yet another zombie, followed by yet another one. And finally, Yeonshin is called, and he turns. Walking towards the door, Wan Chang looks worried. Yeonshin says they told him to keep going until the top, and he slowly starts heading up the steps one by one until he's greeted with a giant door. It somehow opens automatically, and Yeonshin begins to walk forward as he sees all sorts of decorations around the room. He then begins to feel a strange presence and looks up, surprised, as we see a green-haired person in a chair. He wonders if this is the leader that is meant to be the strongest in the world, and he introduces himself to her. The person then turns, and it is yet another elf. Yeonshin waits to hear what she has to say, but all she does is glare at him, saying that he is of that child's bloodline. He asks what she means and if maybe she knows his mother. Her expression quickly changes, and she says it seems like he already knows what she means and that he is pretty bold. Yeonshin doesn't even tremble, and she takes note of this, and he says that he is the grandson of the former Divine Sword Squad leader. She says that he's about to become a part of the Elder Council soon, and he's someone who is very obstinate. She continues glancing at him, saying that he seems to have a wound. He says it's nothing to be concerned about, and it's just trivial family matters. She says they aren't trivial, and it's just covered by his trained body, and he will probably live for around 15 years. She nods her head, saying it's true that this isn't something an outsider should comment on, and he should go seek out his grandfather first. He apologizes, but he says the transcendent air she carries as someone with absolute strength is a separate matter from her trying to interfere with his family matters. She smiles and sticks her foot out, slowly getting up from the chair, saying that she likes him. It's interesting that he doesn't bow down to anyone, even though he came here because he has something he wants. He's surprised, wondering how she knows what he wants, saying that maybe she found out that his upper meridian is abnormally wide, and he decides to go for it, asking if the fruit of the world tree would save him. She says while the facts about it aren't all inaccurate, he begins to grow more nervous, but she says yes, it's possible for him to get what he wants, and he says that he knew it, asking if he can get it. She tells him it depends on what he does. He sighs out of relief, saying that's good enough for him and thanks her. Then he remembers that this is a trial, asking if he is a martial artist of the fortress now. She smiles, saying yes and he may leave, and calls him the next Divine Sword Squad leader. He looks to see if she's jesting or not, and she gives him a soft, but warm smile, and as he's leaving, he says that he doesn't know if she's teasing him or not, or if she really sees the potential. He then turns, saying maybe she's inferring that he can get the fruit of the world tree if he becomes the Divine Squad leader. And if that's the case, at least he has a goal. It then jumps to Hwashin and an old guy, as well as Wan Chang looking all smug, and Yonshin, who just looks curious. They're all following one of the men from the desolate fortress, who says that only the 4 of them have passed. He asks if they know what kind of work the desolate fortress does. Wan Chang says that it's to stop all the Murim martial masters from overthrowing the imperial family. The man says that while he's correct, it's not what they mainly do, but it's just one of the major things they do. And there's something else. That is, they prevent or suppress a certain size of conflict from happening in the entirety of Jianghu. The rest realize that that's a lot more than they initially thought. The dude continues, saying that no one knows what would happen when a fight in Jianghu breaks out, after all. A bloodstorm swept across the central plains on the day there were rumors that the heavenly demon's grave was discovered. It would be fine if the fight was contained to those who covet manuals of ultimate martial arts or elixirs, but the heinous deeds of these vicious martial artists are ignored if they affect anyone else around them. And a lot of commoners lost their lives. And when they witness that hellish sight, the empire becomes unrecognizable. Wan Chang looks a bit angry and regretful, saying that it's the disaster of the heavenly demon's grave. The other dude continues the conversation, saying that it has been 17 years since, and the unorthodox sect and demonic factions aren't the only problems. All orthodox groups, including the 9th great sects and 8th great clans, would also become problems. If they leave them be, the people will suffer. Thus, if there's unrest among the people, and taxes aren't paid on time, then the reign of the empire will have problems, and that is why the imperial family provides them with huge amounts of money, elixirs, manuals, and martial masters. He then stops walking and turns, telling them all that this is what they'll be doing here at the desolate fortress, and they must sever the heads of any martial artist that disrupts the lives of normal people. And this is the true weight they must carry. They're all caught off guard by this answer, besides Hwashin, who is low-key locked in. Not really sure if Yonshin is caught off guard or not, or if he expected as much. The dude then clears his throat, saying that they'll all be staying here from now on, and after a while, they'll be assigned to a place and be moved to the accommodations for that area. And he wishes them all the best. Sometime later at night, there are flies inside of the room swarming the lamp, and we see Yonshin on his bed, asking if it's been a week. He says he's getting assigned later than he expected. As we see him practicing his meditation, Wan Chang knocks on the door, asking if he can enter. Yonshin says yes, and Wan Chang does so. Yonshin asks what's the matter. As Wan Chang approaches him, he says that it's finally been decided where they're going, and they're going to the Radiant Demon Squad, which is a combat squad. Yonshin says the name is familiar to him, and Wan Chang asks if he's heard the rumors. Yonshin says no, and Wan Chang tells him that the 17th Combat Squad captains under the Divine Sword Squad fought each other in order to take in new warriors. Yonshin is confused, because aren't all the combat squad captains the martial masters that represent the fortress, so why are they sparring with one another? Wan Chang laughs, saying that's right, and it was in order to recruit the White Qilin and the Lightning Genius. Yonshin doesn't even say anything, and it skips to the next day at the arena of the Radiant Demon Squad, and we see them standing inside of it, wearing their new uniforms, and Wan Chang is in love with his. We see some of the other members as well. watching from the outside, and one of the dudes is low-key a freak, saying they're cute. We are introduced to the squad captain named Ma Jin. Yeonshin says there were talks about him being the strongest amongst the 17 squad captains, and seeing him in person tells him that it's not just a rumor. Ma Jin gets right into their faces and calls out to Yeonshin, calling him the lightning genius. Yeonshin says yes, sir, and Ma Jin continues to glare at him, but Yeonshin's gaze never shifts, and then he starts smirking, saying that he has backbone, and people like him won't die that easily. And that combat squad is under the desolate fortress. The Divine Squad is basically like one of the sects in the Central Plain. The two of them will learn martial arts in the Radiant Demon Squad and execute missions, and everybody here are their seniors. Wan Chang tells Ma Jin that he has a question. Ma Jin says to go for it, and Wan Chang thanks him for allowing him the chance, and asks if that means learning martial arts in the Radiant Demon Squad means that everyone shares their martial arts. Ma Jin says not really, and those you learn by yourself belong to you. Only the martial arts of the Radiant Demon Squad will be taught here. Wan Chang starts pogging out of his gourd, saying that he can't believe he's going to be learning the famous Radiant Demon arts. Ma Jin says he's going to need to work hard to learn them if he wants to survive. Yeonshin says he's heard of their martial arts before. He explains how their squad is one of the more famous ones among the 17, because they were able to fight the Plum Blossom Swordsmen, the elite 24 swordsmen of the Manhwa sect, without any casualties, and that incident gave even more credibility to the rumors saying that the desolate fortress is the strongest in the world. Ma Jin says that while they are affiliated with the imperial family, attacks on the martial artists of the desolate fortress do not constitute treason, and this is why they must learn whatever they can hear and become stronger. Yeonshin says that doesn't really make sense, asking why it's not treason. Ma Jin makes an expression as if it wasn't that bad of a question and tells him that there are many eccentric people here in Zhonghu. Numerous have lost their minds due to learning demonic arts, or they are exceptionally skilled in mobility arts and could mess with government officials before escaping to the high mountains and deep valleys. That is why the dignity of the imperial family isn't applied to them, since their job isn't to act like government officials, but to actually fight other martial artists. Therefore, like he's been saying to them over and over, if they do not become stronger, they will die. He then turns to the side, saying that the guy who got slashed by the Namgung's strongest swordsman while out on a mission would be able to give them a better description of that. The dude says that he must be talking about the king-style sword arts, and that it was an incredibly scary one as he lifts up his bandana a bit. Yeonshin says that the king-style sword arts is known to be one of the strongest styles of swordsmanship in the world, and it is a supreme martial art only learned by the main descendants of the Namgung clan, and that the Namgung's strongest swordsman is meant to be the strongest martial master in the entirety of China. Ma Jin looks pissed, and the dude sighs, saying okay, and walks over, but Yeonshin can't believe he fought such a skilled master and came back alive. The dude says that he'll start with the lightning genius, and he heard that his swift sword arts are pretty exceptional, and he wants to take a better look at them. Yeonshin understands what this means and starts to walk in front of him. He then grabs onto his sword and starts to release his aura. As it pulsates around the ground, the rest are surprised by this, and we even see some smiles in the crowd. Ma Jin and Wan Chang as well are surprised. As Yeonshin continues to pulse out his blue, lightning-like aura, like how he was given the nickname, the dude smiles and grabs onto his blade, and Yeonshin watches as he unsheathes it, and he puts it on his back. He introduces himself, saying that his name is Chung Myung, and he was born and raised in Zhongyang. Yeonshin introduces himself, saying that he is from Xinye County. Chung Myung says he sees and can't believe a place has a genius such as himself, and they have a WWE stare down. Chung Myung says that you can feel wind being produced even if it's a 10-year-old kid using the tri-sword technique. That's why, while fighting, you can find out how one swings their sword. Yeonshin wonders what he means by wind, and Chung Myung continues, saying that making it this far at such a young age means he's quite talented. And he can't wait for him to show him that talent, as we see some kind of heat emanating off his blade. Yeonshin continues, saying that he wants to see his talent with his sword. And Yeonshin says okay, as he starts to lock in by grabbing closer to the top of the hilt. Everybody's surprised that he's demonstrating sword resonance, and even Ma Jin is as well, as we see it pulsing off of the ground beneath him like he demonstrated before. Yeonshin stares at Chung Myung, who is laughing at this, but I believe that is an amused laugh. Yeonshin tells himself to focus. And all he sees is white in front of him. He says that he can feel his opponent's breathing with his energy detection, as he starts doing exactly that. As the only sound we hear is Chung Myung breathing in and breathing out. Yeonshin waits longer while listening to the sounds, and then opens his eyes widely, saying, "Right now," as he stomps the floor and dashes forward directly towards Chung Myung. As he starts to slowly unsheath his blade using the swift sword arts, he swings towards Chung Myung's arm, but Chung Myung reacts with ample time, knocking him backwards, causing him to lose balance. Yeonshin looks confused, but Chung Myung expected as much and starts smiling. Yeonshin wonders when exactly he raised his blade, as he starts to backpedal to create distance. After going far enough, we see him imbuing his foot with some aura as he slams it into the ground, saying that he's a martial master who survived against the strongest swordsman in Namgung, so he expected as much. If he keeps that consideration in mind, this is the most likely outcome, as he's coming back in for round 2. Chung Myung starts to swing down towards his head, and Yeonshin sidesteps it, only catching a few of his hairs as he strays. We see him now behind Chung Myung, as he's in a lunging stance. He slams into the ground, regaining his posture, and starts to swing his blade upwards, which Chung Myung manages to block too. Chung Myung looks surprised, because he probably did better than he expected. Yeonshin just stays laser focused, wondering what's going to happen next. We see Chung Myung's body starting to move slightly, until the point that he's completely gone from in front of him. Yeonshin is surprised by this, but knows that he's going to be coming in for an attack. He dodges forward as it comes in from behind him. We see that was just a feint, as Chung Myung is now preparing the follow-up with his sword raised high. He readies himself, but Yeonshin does as well. As Chung Myung's swing comes in, Yeonshin dodges underneath it while raising up his own attack, and keeps eye contact directly with Chung Myung. As Chung Myung leans his head backwards, we see his bandana get cut, but he dodges the attack, doing a backflip through the air, revealing that he is actually a fairy, as we see his ears. He lands on the ground in front of Yeonshin. The entire room is just eerily silent, as they stare at one another. Everybody looks surprised, as they didn't expect this level of a fight from somebody who just joined. Even Ma Jin was completely engrossed in it. Wan Chang looks like he dropped a log in his pants. We see Yeonshin readying for the next bout of blows. But he notices Chung Myung is taking a pretty relaxed stance, and he says, as expected of the noble race. We see him letting out a sigh. Yeonshin lowers his sword as well, misunderstanding that he wants to end this with one final attack. He says that he'll use the limit releasing technique on his sword, which used to be called the origin ability. He then realizes something strange, as he looks around the room and everybody's just staring, dumbfounded, with their jaws dropped, and he wonders why they're making such expressions. Even Chung Myung looks bewildered. Yeonshin lowers his blade and asks Chung Myung what he thinks of it. Chung Myung is surprised, asking what he means. Yeonshin says that he knows he went easy on him, but to please be honest. Chung Myung starts to think about it, and then asks him how old he said he was again. Yeonshin's a bit annoyed, but says he's 15, asking why it's that important. He says their enemies won't go easy on him just because of age, and that skills are the most important thing right now. Of course, Yeonshin's misunderstanding, as Chung Myung is just confused on how a 15-year-old is this strong. And Yeonshin says that he's already going to have a short life to begin with, so there's no meaning in talking about age. Everybody else is also just under the same impression as Chung Myung, saying that for him to be so skilled at 15 is absolutely crazy, and he must be some mistake from the heavens. They've been to the Dragon Phoenix Summit a few times, but they've never seen anything remotely close, and they doubt that you can become like that even if you've learned the instinct honing arts from birth. Some of the younger people in the group say that they thought they were the most talented in their city, and it turns out they were just a frog in a well. But Yeonshin's still just trying to gauge the situation. And we see Wan Chang still just unable to even speak, and Bro might have died, but Ma Jin's come to some sort of conclusion. Chung Myung laughs and sheathes his blade, while Yeonshin's still looking around the room. Maybe Bro doesn't realize how strong he is. It then jumps to Wan Chang screaming very loudly, while everybody else laughs at him. And we see Ma Jin's hand imbued with aura. As Wan Chang is holding onto his chest while leaning over, Ma Jin says it's commendable that he's still standing rather than being laid out on the ground. And he should go back now and solidify what he's learned. Wan Chang says, "Yes, sir," and he starts to wobble off. As Ma Jin looks to his side, he spots Yeonshin training, and that he is laser focused. Even with all of Wanchang's yapping, he tells him that he's done too, asking if he's understood the point of the steps. Yeonshin says, yes, and it's to think and act in a seamless manner. Ma Jin says that's right, and there's always a way for him to move, regardless of the situation. The true crux of the Radiant Demon Arts is to move seamlessly without disrupting the path of his attacks. And he must now understand the deeper meaning of the path of attacks too. Yeonshin asks what he means by the deeper meaning of the path, and Ma Jin thinks about it, saying it'd be better and faster to show it to him. He stands in front of one of the lanterns and tells him to look carefully as he puts his hand onto it. They watch, wondering what's going to happen, as his hand starts to steam with a blue aura. It kicks up a bunch of dust beneath him as he starts to release it, to the point that it even sends his hair flying up as well. He then takes in a deep breath, and we see his entire body look like it drops a little bit, and Yeonshin's noticed this as well, saying that he's completely relaxed even though he's releasing his aura, which is pretty unique. Ma Jin slowly raises his hand into the air, and then, once he's right by his face, he punches forward, and it's super fast and smooth, shattering the pillar in one clean strike. As it falls to the floor, everybody's impressed, as they expected as much from their squad leader. Wanchang asks how the hell his hand isn't hurting, and Ma Jin explains that the strongest attack at the perfect timing is what the path of attack is. If you follow a perfect path of attack, then the most powerful attack will be unleashed. Yeonshin says that means they need to grasp the timing of unleashing their strength. Ma Jin says although he's shown it to them, he's not asking them to do this immediately, because this isn't something you can master after just seeing it once, and this is something you have to go through your entire life to learn. Yeonshin asks if that's really the case, because he thinks he could do it right now though. He then walks past Ma Jin, and Ma Jin wonders what he's doing, and if he's really about to give this a try. Yeonshin stands in front of the other lantern, saying that the essence of core energy is the great nature. He exhales and says that just following its lead would be sufficient enough. He starts to use his body sword unification and says that he's going to slowly relax just the same way Ma Jin did. He closes his eyes and then opens them after taking in a quick breath. He starts to see the world a bit differently now. There are lines all over this lantern and even in the air around it, and he sees a bright circle directly in the middle of it. He raises his blade while it's still in its sheath, and then thrusts it forward directly towards the core of the lantern, hitting it, causing it to crack slightly. And then immediately, that crack starts to grow until it completely shatters just from him tapping it with the sheath. As it falls over, he smiles, saying that he's understood the deeper meaning of the path now, and he's learned all of the Radiant Demon Arts, so he just needs to continue training to be able to use it in a real fight from now on. He turns, smiling, wondering what the reactions are going to be, and everybody's just sitting there like, what the hell? Yeonshin says that he showed an unsightly side of himself since it's his first time trying this, and he still needs to experience many more real fights before he can use it properly. And if he wants to use the Radiant Demon Arts in an instant where life and death is on the line, normal practice like this won't work. Everybody else is just confused, bro, because he actually has no idea how strong he is. Yeonshin thanks him for his teachings, and Ma Jin kind of sits there, not sure what to say, and then comes up with something, saying it looks like he has to think about how he should teach him from now on. Yeonshin wonders if that means it's going to get harder or not. The next day, we hear Wanchang asking if he heard that their seniors had a huge fight with the Heavenly Squad. Yeonshin looks up at him, asking what he means, saying that he thought the Desolate Fortress was pretty strict with its rules. From what he remembers, fighting outside of training grounds is a punishable offense for martial artists of the Desolate Fortress, asking why they fought. Wanchang says that it's pretty simple, and that one of the Heavenly Squad members picked a fight in a restaurant. He says something along the lines of how Yeonshin's talent wouldn't be able to blossom within the Radiant Demon Squad. And Yeonshin asks if they really fought over something as measly as that. Wanchang says that he just doesn't know what Miram is like, and this is its true face. Something that doesn't seem like a big deal could provoke someone to raise their sword against you. And the streets place great value in the process of stopping that sword and winning in that situation. Yeonshin says surely, they're more angry that they just insulted the squad instead. And then thinks about it, saying this could be an opportunity. If he wants to get the fruit of the world tree, which all the noble races of this world worship, he needs to accomplish something, and he'll need help from the others in the process of doing so. And while the best way to gain the trust of a martial artist is to owe each other their life, It's not a bad idea to make a good impression on squad members first. He then stands up, saying that after some thinking, he thinks what he said was right, and if the seniors are really fighting because of him, he can't let that go, and he'll go pay them a visit. Wanchang is surprised by this and watches as Yeonchan walks away, and saying that he knew he was a chivalrous person who knows the code of a martial artist. Yeonchan wonders if this is really something considered chivalrous as he appears in front of the Radiant Squad once more. Everybody wonders what they're doing here since the newbies don't have a lesson today, and if they really came to train anyway, saying they sure are working hard. But of course, we know Yeonchan has ulterior motives, and he starts to walk up towards Ma Jin. And the other dudes tell him that they should go enjoy their day off, and though it is commendable they want to work, they want to train. Yeonchan and Wanchang both greet Ma Jin, and Ma Jin asks if they ran into problems or something. Yeonchan says that he wants to have a spar. Ma Jin says if that's the case, he could choose anyone, and they'll spar with him. And Yeonchan says he doesn't want to do it against his own squad, and he would like to spar against the Heavenly Squad instead. Everybody's surprised by this, even Wanchang didn't expect it, and Ma Jin smiles, saying that it seems he's caught wind of what happened yesterday, and there's no need to get too worked up over that. Yeonchan says he's not really worked up though, and he just would like to be able to see the heavenly sword arts, which he's admired for a long time. Ma Jin can tell that he's genuine about it, and says that it's too late for him to say something like that, and it seems he's too agitated, but it's not a bad idea, because see, this means that he is getting worked up about his seniors. Yeonchan says he would like to spar and show that the Radiant Demon Arts are a great martial art, and he asks for Ma Jin to please allow him to do that. Of course, he just wants to gain fighting experience with his newfound martial arts and leave a good impression on his seniors, and he would be killing 3 birds with 1 stone, because he could also maybe learn the Heavenly Squad's arts as well. Ma Jin says that he has needed to learn the same kind of martial arts as the Heavenly Squad, nor has he fought in a battle together with them, and while it might be a spar, there's no reason for them to go easy on him. And Yeonchan says that's exactly what he is hoping for. Then he puts on an angry face, even though he isn't. Everybody's surprised, because they take the bait, and they can't believe that the newbies this worked up. And they say that's the spirit befitting of a martial artist at the desolate fortress, and they would love to see what he's like after he grows up. And they continue just going crazy. Ma Jin thinks about it after a bit, and says fine, and he'll pass on the message to the Heavenly Squad for him. It jumps to the Heavenly Squad arena as we see Yeonchan standing in front of a blue robe. The other members of the squad say that they can't believe a white robe is challenging a blue one, and it's supposed to be like a guidance fight for the sake of learning. And they wonder how many attacks he'll even endure. Whatever the case is, the longest he would last would be around 10 bouts, and it seems a lot of people seem to have this consensus. One of the men says that there's no way a newly joined white robe is going to even last 10 against a blue robe. The blue robe himself clicks his tongue, thinks about it, and says he can't see that happening either. We are then introduced to the Heavenly Squad captain, who is named Han Cholmok. Ma Jin is sitting beside him, and they have awkward silence for a few seconds. Cholmok points his hand forward, saying that if that brat lasts 10 bouts, he'll give one of the Heavenly Squad's elixirs. Ma Jin is surprised by this, saying that an elixir is too much to place as a bet. Cholmok asks if he's scared to lose. Ma Jin says don't provoke him, as the desolate fortress's elixirs aren't something that can be used frivolously. Cholmok says the honor of the Radiant Demon Squad and the Heavenly Squad is on the line, asking how that's frivolous at all. Ma Jin sighs but agrees, saying he accepts it. Cholmok smiles and takes a seat, and he says as the leader of the group, they must trust their own people. Ma Jin starts to smirk because he knows what's going to happen. The blue robe dude walks forward, double checking that Yeonchan is the lightning genius. He says yes while introducing himself. He then looks up, saying that a blue robe warrior means that there's someone who advanced from where he is currently. However, not everybody becomes a blue robe, and there are also people who take more than 10 years to become one. The blue robe warriors of the desolate fortress are people who won't lose even to the pinnacle martial masters who represent the major martial sect. The man says he's trained in the heavenly sword arts for 20 years. While swords are said to have no eyes, the swords of masters do. Despite that, he won't be showing mercy in his duel. He better keep that in mind. Yeonchan gives him a quick alright, and the dude can't believe he gave him such a cool speech just to get that reply. He then draws his blade, and as soon as he unsheathes it, we see a blue glow around it as the air around him starts to tense up immediately. Everybody else in the room feels this as well. It turns out this dude might be way more powerful than what we originally thought. Yonshin just can't wait to see what kind of sword style this guy uses as a blue robe of the Heavenly Squad. He then smirks, saying that he should throw away any unnecessary thoughts. As he grabs onto his sword's handle, he unsheathes his as well, saying no matter what kind of style he uses, he will simply use his own to win. The man says that he'll let him have the first attack, telling him to go ahead and come at him. Yonshin uses his limit releasing technique, dashing forward at insane speeds, and swings upwards, which the man blocks. The dude is surprised by the attack, saying that he's actually way faster than he thought. Yonshin then thrusts his blade forward, which the man deflects with the side of his. This continues over and over, with the man deflecting each and every one of Yonshin's attacks. But it gives him no chance to counter. Chalmok looks a bit nervous, asking if that's really the speed of a white robe. Of course, Ma Jin smiles, because he knew this would happen. Seeing that level of skill at this age inevitably takes one's breath away. However, with his skills, if he doesn't make use of the opportunity, then he won't be able to win. Yonshin takes a half step forward to get closer, which the man notices, as Yonshin's thrusts are speeding up more and more. To the point where the dude actually has to open his eyes to block them, and he starts to sweat nervously. Yonshin explains that now that he's able to use this technique and not overexert himself, he's definitely gotten stronger than before he entered this place. He now has his physical body trained with his own movement arts and the principles of martial arts to begin with. The more inclined the sword trajectory is, the more back muscles it uses. We see him take a big step forward, and he starts to pivot, saying that every step he uses, he needs to use core energy to turn, creating rotational force. This time he swings at a diagonal upwards, which knocks the blue robe sword up into the air. Everybody's surprised by this, because they realize that this white robe is actually putting up one hell of a fight. Yonshin then twists his body, going for a counterattack while the dude's sword is high in the air. Leaving him defenseless, Yonshin comes in with his attacks, saying that he has also learned another move. The dude lowers his blade to block the attack, and Yonshin smiles, because this is what he anticipated, as we see the dude's sword flying through the air. It's now on the ground behind him, because he knocked it out of his hands as he was using the guy's own opening as bait. He then points the blade directly towards the dude's throat. The dude's just surprised that he lost like this, and Yonshin lets out a sigh of relief while everybody else is in disbelief about what they just witnessed. Chalmok looks pissed, because he just lost his elixir, but of course, Ma Jin expected this. The members of the Heavenly Squad are just shocked, whereas the Radiant Squad all knew their boy had that dog in him. They start cheering for Yonshin as he's looking down at his blade. Happy with himself, he sheathes it, and the blue robe just sits there, holding onto his wrist. Yonshin, though, thinks that he only won because he got lucky, and he had overwhelming momentum as the dude was taken by surprise, and if they fought again, the results would be different. He thanks the man for giving him the opportunity to observe such high-level swordsmanship, and the dude smiles while walking away towards his blade. He picks it up off the ground, saying that he was surprised by his sword's trajectory and rotational force, and he possesses martial prowess beyond his years. On top of being so young, he possesses martial prowess that's unfathomable, and the Radiant Demon Squad has found a treasure that he truly is envious of. Ma Jin sticks out his hand for Chalmok to give him the elixir, and Yonshin says that he's going to name this new technique the Energy Accumulation Discharge. Ma Jin approaches him, holding onto a box, and tosses it up towards him. Yonshin sticks his hands out, catching it, wondering what this is, and Ma Jin smirks, saying that it's an elixir of the Heavenly Squad, and that he has earned it. Some time later, we see all the members of the Radiant Demon Squad, specifically the blue robes guarding a building which is probably where Yonshin will be absorbing energy. We hear a woman talking to Chung Myung, who says he's such a monster, and she can't believe he defeated a skilled swordsman like Aquan so easily. We are introduced to Baek Myrieo. Myrieo says even so, he's hardworking, humble, and polite, and he's also really good at seeing through martial arts. Chung Myung says that it's definitely a talent they've never seen before, and she explains that whenever she uses a technique while sparring, he would somehow be able to apply the same principle in a different posture. In addition, the way he executes it is much more precise as well, and she would hate to use exclusive martial arts in front of him, as he's got some kind of innate talent for reinterpreting martial arts. Chung Myung says he does, and it's as if he learned them a long time ago, and that he is a real monster. Ma Jin says he doesn't know how much of the elixir he'll be able to draw out, as usually, people would absorb about 60 to 70% of it, but depending on the situation, it could be less than that. If he acts recklessly, because he feels like he's absorbing less, he could damage his energy core or blood vessels, so he shouldn't be too obsessed with absorbing it. Yeonshin says yes. Ma Jin continues, saying the way to consume an elixir is to allow the elixir to flow into your core energy, and circulate that energy endlessly until it is melted completely. He'll step in and help if his energy circulation becomes unstable, so he shouldn't get surprised by that and adapt accordingly. Yeonshin puts it to his mouth, saying alright, and then slides it in. He says he feels energy increasing just as the elixir entered his body. We see it pulsating around his core, as there is a golden light reflecting the same color as the elixir, and it begins to spread throughout his meridians. As the air around Yeonshin starts to snap due to the pressure, we see the box of the elixir get pushed away. Ma Jin stands behind him, watching intently, as Yeonshin starts circulating the aura around his body, doing his best to not disturb the flow of the elixir. Chung Myung and Myri Ao both notice this change in the air, saying they must have started by now, and she's curious to know how much stronger he'll get after eating the elixir. As the sun starts to settle, it does some sick transition into Yeonshin's core. As we see, more of the elixir is still being absorbed by him. I'm not sure how much he's going to absorb, but since he has plot armor, I would say about 100%. This panel is also really cool. We see him starting to sweat, and Ma Jin is still staring at him, making sure that it's going smoothly, and he says that he heard he is absorbing an elixir for the first time, yet his circulation is extremely natural. There's absolutely no need for him to help at all here. So he pretty much has been standing on guard all day. The air starts to lose the tension that it had before, as the cultivation must be done, because even the aura is starting to fade out. Yeonshin then slowly opens his eyes, and looks down at his hands, as we see a golden light around them. Ma Jin sighs, saying that it looks like he's completely absorbed it, and Yeonshin says the newly obtained energy seems pretty strong. Ma Jin did not expect him to absorb the entire thing, and not only that, he did it without any help. Yeonshin's eyes open widely, and he says that now that he has more energy, he can detect presences that he didn't previously. His seniors are surrounding this place, and they were protecting him because he would be vulnerable while absorbing the elixir. He wonders if this is normal, so Yeonshin asks Ma Jin if this is really the case, and Ma Jin smiles. Yeonshin finds it a bit odd, so he calls out to Ma Jin, who turns towards him, and he asks why everybody is being so nice to him. Ma Jin smirks, saying that they're not just taking special care of him, and this is because he's a part of their squad. This is done for every member. It's something that becomes natural once you risk your life a few times in the Murim, as your squad members are comrades that you'll fight life and death with. And the stronger he becomes, the better it is for the squad as well. Since it means the rest of them will have better chances of survival as well. Chung Myung tells everybody it's time to leave, and as they start doing so, Yeonshin is still just surprised, wondering if this is how it really is. If you recall, he was not treated great in his family. That night, back in his room, we see him in lotus position on his bed, as he is checking his core, double-checking how much of the energy he's retained. He says that he has way more than he did last time, but to the point where he had before, it can't compare to this. He just wanted to check out how much stronger his martial arts have become now as well, so he heads to the training area. Myri Ao spots him, asking what he's doing here, and he calls her the Zen Sword Demon, as that is her nickname. She sighs, asking if he really came out to train because he couldn't take it anymore. He says yes, and she says that she also realized something after seeing his fight. He asks her what she learned, saying congratulations, and she tells him it was only a small move. And she's sorry if he had planned to train, but asks if he would like to spar. He says he can train alone anytime, but it's a rare opportunity to be able to spar with somebody such as herself. Again, he calls her by her title, and she says to just call her Myri Ao instead, as that's more than enough. He smiles, and then they take their stances across from each other. He draws his blades, saying he'll make the first move. As she starts to get into her stance, she raises her fingers, telling him to go ahead and start. He understands, and starts thrusting forward, just like he did against Aquan. She easily sidesteps the attack, grabbing onto his palm, and gets right close to his face, which surprises him. She pulls his arm to the side, and comes in with the follow-up attack of her palm, straight to his chest, sending out a shockwave through the back. He didn't expect this kind of counterattack from her, and as she comes in with a follow-up left, she rears it back while exhaling, and he starts to imbue his own hand with aura while stretching it forward to block her attack. Even though he does his best to do so, it's still too much for him, as it instantly shatters the protective aura he had, sending him backwards a little bit. He seems to be thinking about something, as she says that he truly is scary. He asks if she trained to use the 1-inch strike, and she says yes. As a swordsman that has learned the radiant demon arts can't use only swords, so the 1-inch strike is very useful in close combat. In order to deal with the energies mixed in their bodies, you need to destroy the enhanced protection energy. After using core energy and the burst discharge to increase tension, the 1-inch strike really becomes more efficient. He seems to have a different opinion, asking if he's allowed to speak freely, even though he's new. She tells him to go for it, and he says that he's been more sensitive when it comes to detecting energy since he was young, and the way she used her core energy attracted his attention. She's just surprised, and they kind of sit there in awkward silence for a second, and she asks if he was really able to detect the movement of her core energy. If you've watched till the end, comment, Copyco, to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.